He is, to my mind, one of the most awake and aware people I've ever known. And how he stays awake and aware, given his travel schedule, I cannot imagine.
He basically saved several souls. I'm just talking about Myanmar, Burma, but there are, a number of poets and dissident writers, especially because of him, came here to Iowa City and continue to live in the U.S. and thrive in the U.S.
I spent much of the 90s covering the wars of succession in the former Yugoslavia, about which I wrote a couple of books. And then after the war, I started making pilgrimages to the holy mountain of Athos in northern Greece. And I was about to go into a night-long vigil for Orthodox Christmas when I called home and my wife said, "You have this really strange message from Iowa."
He had this great combination of being both a poet, which was really at the heart of the enterprise, but at the same time, his war journalism in particular made him somebody who's just very expansive. And then he had the capacity, and he clearly from the beginning had the organizational skill set that it was going to take. When he came on board, the program had pretty much bottomed out. It was on the verge of collapsing. Widely publicized forms. People were very, very upset on campus for that program to go under.
This seemed intriguing. The challenge was to come in and rebuild the International Writing Program, the IWP. If I had known how much I would have to rebuild and how deep the problems were, I might have thought that staying at a small liberal arts college in New England would have been the wiser course of action. But in due course, with the help of lots of great people, we found our way to new ways of thinking about how to engage in cultural diplomacy, and that was the beginning of what turned out to be a really fruitful run with the Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs at the State Department.
I think the first thing I noticed about him was, soft-spoken as he was, the ambitions he had for this program were massive. A world vision for the program, but also a local vision.
Chris is just he is a creative person, fundamentally a creative person. He's a very straight arrow. That's one of the things that I most liked about him. Truly not an opportunist, and this is a wonderful thing to see in otherwise a very often very turbulent political waters.
I think one of the things I learned as a stringer in the Balkans during the war was you often find yourself in a jam and you have to figure out how to get out of that jam. And when I took the job here at Iowa, I remember Pauline Engel said to me at one point, I'd complained about something and she said, "Oh no, don't get down on that, don't despair." And I said, "Look, for me, a drunken Serbian soldier at a checkpoint, that's something I worry about. In academia, they don't have that good aim. So I think it won't be so bad here."
You look at Chris's output over his career, and it is astonishing. And the variety of genres that he works in, and it's kind of magical to me how Chris's awareness and being awake to the moment leads to these intense, almost imagistic descriptions that then flower into a more general understanding of what's going on in the world.
I have the greatest job in the sense that I have the chance every hour to find out how little I know about some part of the world. In my first or second year, we had this wonderful poet, essayist, documentarian from Malaysia. I had the chance to visit him. We traveled to the northern province of Kelantan to watch a ceremony that had been proscribed by the Islamist government. It was over 2 nights. I saw a shaman exorcising some demons from a woman who seemed to be suffering from a form of depression. And it was the most magical thing I've ever seen. And I thought, well, that's something I can write about.
What I love about Chris's work is it always invites the reader to try doing the same thing. You read these and you think, how's he do that? Chris would be the first one to say, you can, believe me. It's all I do is I write down what I see and then I think about it. He's always traveling and he's always writing and reading translations and doing translations and thinking across languages and across cultures in a way no one else I've ever encountered can do.
People who came from dangerous circumstances and who turned to him for help and support have always had it. Writers from Afghanistan, writers from Burma, writers from the Middle East, writers now from Ukraine and from Russia, they knew that when they write to Chris and say, I need help, he will be there trying to do his best.
I didn't plan to come to the US at all in 2016. It wasn't in the cards. So I met him in 2016 in person for the first time. He was, very generous and very welcoming, and he even insisted I must be, there. It changed, my life, basically. Without that experience, I wouldn't be here now. So this generosity of spirit, I find it very inspiring, and that kept me going as well as a poet. And he's one of those, I would say, mentors that I look up to. And I can name like half a dozen of Burmese poets who came here out of fear of persecution in Myanmar. So that makes our city not just a fulcrum of international literature, but also make the US, a very warm place for dissident writers, and it enriches the culture.
I've often joked that I had the chance to travel to a lot of places nobody wants to go to. Turkmenistan, Afghanistan, Iraq, Iran. One of the things that I have found repeatedly is wherever we go, so much more unites us than divides us, and that's what makes something like the IWP work, is because people are mostly interested in engaging if they get the chance. And so we try to create the conditions for such engagements to take place. I have been extraordinarily lucky. I've had the chance to travel to so many places that I would never have imagined traveling to. I'm very grateful to have had the chance to be in conversation with so many interesting writers from so many different places around the world. That's a gift I could not have imagined early on in my writing life.
I came to the University of Iowa on the faculty in 1976, so it's been a long time, but in all that time, there's never been a better appointment than Chris as director of the International Writing Program. Walk around Iowa City now and you look at the plaques of the writers in the ground, those weren't always there. And it's now sort of everywhere in the city, and the university even markets itself now as the writing university. That all grows out of work, I think, that Chris started, nurtured, and eventually saw come to fruition.